Hello everybody, I'm Rusty. I want to welcome you to Island Breeze Tropicals. So today we're going to be talking about cold hardiness and bromeliads. Brrr. So you know what, the sun is shining, the island breeze is blowing. It's time that you and I got growing. Come on, let's have some fun and let's talk about cold hardiness and bromeliads. Okay guys, before we get going, for all of my friends who live in an area where you really do get winter, by now I know that you've taken your plants inside. But I want you to keep watching because we're going to give you some information that may help you extend the period of time next year before winter hits on how long you can keep your bromeliads outside. Okay guys, so when we're talking about cold hardiness and bromeliads, we need to know two things. One is the threshold temperature. What temperature will it get down to? But equally important is how long will it stay at that temperature. Now, where I am in Southwest Florida, in general, it warms up fairly quickly. Now, there's an exception to the rule. We just had a 3-day stretch of nothing but clouds and 45 to 48 degrees. Never got much above 50. So that duration is also going to help me to determine what I'm going to do with a lot of my bromeliads. Now here at the Tangle, I don't protect most of what I have growing here, even with mid-40s and even with it being over a period of 3 days. Now we're not talking 30 degrees here. When we get down into the 30 range, all bets are off and you really should be protecting your plants. We'll go into that a little later on. So just as a rule of thumb, most bromeliads, not all, but most bromeliads can handle down in the mid-40s, and they can stay at the mid-40s for some prolonged periods. Most of the bromeliads I have here at the Tangle, I do not protect. And they're out in the shade house, and they don't get any protection at all, other than the shade cloth maybe holding a little bit of heat. So is there any way to tell if your particular bromeliad is cold hardy? And unfortunately, no, there isn't. There is no hard and fast rule because there are so many genera, and bromeliads come from all over the subtropics and tropics. They grow at different elevations, they have different lineage, and there's just no way to tell. So how do you know? Well, what I do is I'll go online and I'll take a look at lists that other people have made after they, through their experience, have had bromeliads out in the weather, out in low temperatures. But you really should check more than one list. Don't take it as gospel truth. There could be a lot of mitigating factors. Now, I've read some instances where people have had bromeliads growing down into the low 30s. Now, some plants in the genus Puya and Dicea can get down to low 30s. And unfortunately, I don't have any of those here to show you today. Puya is sometimes a difficult grow here in Florida, so I don't have any of those in my collection. Now, is there any way to tell by looking at the plant if it is cold hardy? And again, no, there's no way to tell. Now, there have been some accounts that I've read that said the stiffer the leaves, the more hardy it will be to cold. I'm going to show you an example where that's not true. And we just did a video on Gamma Sapala, and it's mainly a green plant. And take a look, these leaves are not stiff, are they? Take a look at that. So these are not stiff, and Gamma Sapala can put up with brief periods in the upper 30s and certainly can go 3 days in the mid-40s and not get damaged. Now, here is an example where the stiffness of the leaves certainly does not impart cold hardiness to the plant. Now, you may recognize this from an episode of the Collecting Corner that we just posted, and this is a Chantinii, and its name is Samurai, and almost all of the Chantinii, if not all of them, are real cold wimps. They do not like cold temperatures, and they will start spotting even in the mid-40s. And those are plants that you're going to have to either bring inside or you're going to have to give protection to if they're in the ground. So in order to protect my Chantinii, they are really the most sensitive bromeliads that I have. I'm going to show you where I put them. Why don't we go on out to the greenhouse? Okay, so we're in the greenhouse here at the Tangle, and I made some space so that I could put my most sensitive bromeliads in here so that they would be protected from the prolonged coolness that we just had. And these are all in that one special category, Chantinii. Again, guys, you ought to take a look at the Collecting Corner episode. We went into Chantinii in depth. Now, admittedly, I am very fortunate in order to have a greenhouse. By the way, the greenhouse now is rebuilt. It took a while, kind of demolished a little bit of it, but we're back up and running with it. But not everybody has a greenhouse. And what will you do to protect your most sensitive bromeliads if you don't? Come on, let's go back up on the plant deck. So what do you do with your bromeliads if cold weather is coming? Well, one of the most obvious things would be to take them indoors if you can. Even if you have a garage, put them in the garage. Even if it's not heated, it will protect them from frost. So if they're growing in the ground, well, what do? Well, they can also be covered. Now, we're going to go into how to properly cover your plants in another video, hopefully really soon. But you have to remember that covering your plants with a cloth is not going to impart any heat to the plant. Mainly what it's going to be doing is perhaps retaining some of the latent heat that's in the ground. But remember, unless you have a heating source underneath that cloth, well, your plant's still going to be cold. So anyway, guys, that's it. Now, there's no hard and fast rule. There's no way to tell whether your bromeliad is hardy to cold, and I would recommend that you treat every bromeliad as though it is not hardy to cold. Now, you can test them, but as with all tests, you need to watch your plants. So no matter where you are, I hope your sun is shining. I hope you have an island breeze blowing. And I know that you need to keep growing, have lots of fun. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.